Welcome to EdTech Review Voices. Today we have a very interesting topic talking about higher education reform and transformation. And we have with us Mr. Ken Ross, who is the Managing Director Asia for Minerva Project, and Ms. Robin Goldberg, who is Minerva's Chief Experience Officer. So hi Ken and hi Robin. Welcome to EdTech Review.
Thank you.
Hello, good to be here.
So, Ken, I would like to begin with, for those who don't know much about Minerva Project. So, I would want you to give an overview of the same.
Certainly. Well, Minerva is, quite frankly, a 4-year accredited university program. It is a reimagined university experience for the world's brightest and most motivated students. What we did a number of years ago was basically come together to put together an improved model for a university that's much more fitting for the 21st century. And what that means is that the Minerva model is quite different than other traditional top-tier universities in the United States. In terms of academics, our curriculum, our pedagogy, in terms of our physical experience, students live in 7 different cities and countries around the world in those 4 years. Also in terms of the degree of accessibility that we offer, both in terms of no quotas or limitations for students from anywhere, that means students from India or anywhere else for that matter, and also a much lower level of tuition, $10,000 US as opposed to $40,000 or $50,000 US, coupled with financial aid. This package of everything we put together, we believe is a much more, certainly a very compelling experience and opportunity for, again, top, very, very, very bright and very, very driven students from everywhere.
So, Robin, Ken mentioned about the this differentiating factor about the other higher education institution. So how is actually Minerva rethinking this role of an elite institution of higher learning?
I'm sorry, how are they?
How are we rethinking?
Oh, how are we rethinking? I apologize. So, we are rethinking it in every aspect. So we started by thinking about what do we want our students to be prepared to do when they graduate. And it's a really important way to start because we start with students, and everything we do is student-centric. And when we thought about the role of higher education, it is really about preparing the students to go make decisions of consequence, regardless of what area they end up studying in, whatever their area of expertise. And that really comes down to helping educate them on some core competencies, on practical, transferable skills that they can use regardless of what they go into. So when we think about how are we going to rethink education, we think about preparing them in order to take jobs that don't even exist today.
So what were the core competencies and skills that you guys found out for the elite?
Great question. So there are 4 core competencies that we feel will help prepare them. One is critical thinking, being able to look at something you haven't seen before, break it into its component parts. Second is creative thinking, being able to look at a situation and creatively innovate solutions. The third is effective communication, being able to convey your ideas. And the fourth is effective interactions, being able to work with others. And those are 4 key skills that will serve our students well, for the rest of their lives.
Perfect. But Ken, where do you see the role of technology here in education delivery for such models and skill development?
That's a great question. Quite simply put, at least in Minerva, technology is simply an enabler. It's simply a tool. And it's interesting because a lot of people speak about, particularly people in the EdTech community, sometimes view certain technology that's been developed as maybe the be-all and end-all, so the actual end, not just the means to it. And as I think wonderful as the technology platform, what we call our active learning forum, this virtual classroom experience, highly interactive, highly intense, highly intimate, like nothing I've ever experienced before in a regular classroom in terms of intimacy. As fascinating as this is, what our product team and our engineers put together, at the end of the day, it's just a tool, right? And so I think that Minerva, here we are trying to build, develop, and to grow, and then to share with everybody a much more modern and relevant university model. When we stepped back and we said, how could we do that? And particularly when we looked at the classroom and said, how could we create a better, more effective classroom? A classroom that better optimizes individual student learning outcomes. There are many tools that we use. Many of them are offline, non-technology tools. But then we also realize nowadays, 2015, or several even years ago, but even before 2015, we said, actually, we can use technology to further improve those learning outcomes. But again, at the end of the day, it's a tool. I think it's a magnificent tool, but it's a tool.
So do you think that plays a good role for bringing the cost down, basically, somewhere?
Certainly so. I mean, there are many things that our technology allows us to do. As I said, it allows us to better, I'd say, or more effectively implement so many of the pedagogical tools that have been developed over the years, not necessarily by us, but just by other people over the years, in the classroom. It also enables us to deliver the amazing curriculum that we've put together, this modern and relevant curriculum, to students regardless of where they go. So as our students are living around the world in great cities, world-class cities, Istanbul, Seoul, Bangalore, San Francisco, London, they can still experience the same degree of high-intensity, high-quality, curriculum, which is something that's difficult to do if you travel around the world, but you have different professors in your different location and such. But also, like you said, what it does is it allows us to bring certain costs down. It allows us very much to use the cities as our campuses. So it has a number of, not only does it create for a better classroom experience, but it also affects a lot of other positive changes through this model.
So, Ms. Robin, can you? I've heard a lot about Minerva Schools at KGI. So can you share more details about the same?
Sure. So the Minerva Schools at KGI is our undergraduate program, and as Ken mentioned at the very beginning, it is a 4-year accredited undergraduate program. We're very, very fortunate that we are partnered with the Keck Graduate Institute, which is KGI. KGI is part of the Claremont Consortium, if you're familiar with those schools. They're an incredible group of schools based in Southern California, very, very well respected. And as being part of the consortium, we are able to leverage some of the resources. And KGI has been just tremendous in terms of helping to be a partner as we've developed the curriculum. KGI is the Keck Graduate Institute of Applied Life Sciences and brings us all kinds of history in terms of building innovative educational programs that really break the boundaries of what others are doing.
So, Ken, can you take us into the details of admission policy, the curriculum, and the pedagogies followed at Minerva Schools?
Certainly. Those are a lot of separate, I'd say, questions there. And so I don't know which one you want me to start with.
Maybe with the curriculum.
Certainly curriculum. So again, Minerva's is very much a modern and relevant curriculum. And what does that mean? As Robin mentioned before, we have a strong focus on the learning, teaching, of transferable skills, practical knowledge. And again, these 4 big buckets of thinking critically, thinking creatively, communicating effectively, and interacting effectively. And unlike any other institution I've ever seen or heard of, Minerva does this in a very, very structured and purposeful way. We've identified over 115 to be exact, what we call habits of mind and foundational concepts. Think of these as cognitive processes, ways our brains can learn to think about certain issues, regardless of whatever subject matter we're studying or analyzing or interacting with, right? And Minerva actually has people learn and apply these habits of mind and foundational concepts across multiple disciplines, right? Something that's called far transfer, as a matter of fact, right? Not only do you learn this a habit in one area, but you also learn in other areas, in social sciences, natural sciences, arts and humanities, right? Such that it becomes ingrained in second nature. So this is probably, if I could choose one major differentiator aspect of a curriculum, this would be it. Other aspects of the curriculum include the fact that it's very, very intense. It's meant to be hard, putting a lot of rigor back into higher education. And also, the relevance also relates to the subjects or the content that we teach, right? So there's a focus on skills, as I said before, but there's also subject matter that our students learn. But regardless of what they choose to focus on studying, regardless of what major or concentration they choose, you can be sure that it's quite modern and quite relevant, in fact. And I would certainly urge people to, or suggest people to take a look at some of the sort of the mini course catalog that's available on our website. And when you check that out, you will see more of what I'm talking about, how we do different
I did go through them, so I am definitely going to link those.
I think the other important I would say to mention is about sort of admissions, how we view admissions and assessment, right? Also very, very different. I believe there are ways that process can be done much better there. So, as I said, Minerva is all about increasing accessibility to what we think is an improved model for brightest and most motivated students. So, and the reason why I add the brightest and most motivated is Minerva certainly is very, very selective. We have a very, very, very high bar, very, very high academic bar. But the brilliant thing about that is anyone who meets our bar, regardless of where they're from, regardless of their background, whether their gender, whatever, they get accepted, right? So that means no quotas, no limitations, no minimums, no maximums for anyone. I believe this is very compelling for anyone from around the world, probably particularly for non-American students, right? With most American universities, we'll say, okay, we're going to take 3 Indians this year, or whatever the quota is. We have none of that, which I think is absolutely brilliant. So that's one big facet of the policy. The other thing, as I mentioned, is tuition, and much, much lower tuition, maybe a quarter of the cost of an Ivy League or other liberal arts college. Now, we're looking for the brightest and most motivated students, and we're looking at academic excellence and profound achievement. And our admissions process is a bit different too, and this is important for people to realize. So we look at performance through grades in high school. We take a close look at transcripts, and we grade your grades, we analyze your transcripts. We also ask people to complete a series of assessment tests, cognitive and non-cognitive assessments. We do not accept things like SATs or ACTs or national exams. We believe there are actually better ways, and the science shows us there are better ways of assessing top talent. So we use those tests, right? And then finally, we also look at people's accomplishments, achievements. And
so these are in-house tests that you are referring to?
Yes, it's interesting. There are tests, but they're based on tests that have been around for quite some time. There's a lot of science behind it. There's a lot of science behind everything you do, which is good because we know that those assessments and ways of assessing students are proven over the years. And as I said, finally, we're looking at these accomplishments and achievements, and that's something definitely that I think that the audience I would urge people to think about more. One of the ways that we can actually helps us assess drive and motivation is to see what people have actually done, whether they've written a book, whether they've founded a company, whether they've led an organization, particularly outside of school, that has a certain amount of impact, a certain amount of scale, right? But in any case, we're just interested to hear what people have actually done that show creativity, that show leadership, that show what's the other initiative. Thank you. Right. So you look at those 3 components. That's how we are assessing students.
Perfect. So Ken did mention about increasing the accessibility. So Robin, what are the focus markets for Minerva Project currently?
Yeah, it's a great question. So Minerva is very unique because we have probably one of the most diverse student bodies of any university in the world. Yeah. And I say that if you just look at our founding class, which was a relatively small class to start of 28 students our first year, represented 14 different countries and territories. Next year, we'll have a class well over 100 representing over 13 different countries. And the beauty is that we really appeal to students all over the world. As Ken said, we have a bar. If you meet the bar, you're in, regardless of where you come from, and that's quite special for us. So to give you an idea, last year, or for the incoming class that's coming in September, we received about 11,000 applications from 160 different countries. Okay. So our focus is broad. That said, we also think it's important that not just students should come from different places, but as part of our experience, they have an opportunity to go live in different places around the world. And Ken touched on this earlier, but let me just take a moment to explain what that means, because it's so unique and so special. So part of what we want is the students to truly leave after 4 years with a global sensibility. And we believe the best way to do that is to go live in different places during the course of your 4 years. So at Minerva, your first year you live in San Francisco. So the students gather from all over the world and spend their first year living in a residence hall together and using the city as their campus, doing co-curricular activities and starting to really appreciate everything the city has to offer, both from a cultural perspective, but also understanding all of the economic elements driving that economy. So what's going on in terms of entrepreneurial activity and innovation, and also understanding the political environment. I think understanding those aspects is critical. Then, sophomore year, they start traveling. First semester, you go to Berlin. Second semester, to Buenos Aires. Again, in these cities, immersing yourself to really understand what makes these cities special. Then, continuing on, junior year, Bangalore and Seoul. And the fourth year, senior year, Istanbul and London. So you can imagine after 4 years having an appreciation for the world in a very, very different way.
Absolutely. So Ken, how much is the focus on Indian education, and what are your plans for impacting that system?
Well, I think that, Minerva at a higher level, something we haven't talked about yet today, is Minerva really is looking to make a positive change and impact in higher education. We're certainly starting with doing so in U.S. higher education. We are an American institution. We offer an accredited American degree. You probably understand U.S. higher education the most, and we're certainly, I don't know, at least myself, I'm not an expert on Indian higher education or Indian education, but we also do know that this impact, which is already starting to affect U.S. higher ed, will radiate outwards, right? I don't think that, certainly no offense to Indian education, but I don't think there's a perfect model that exists out there anywhere in the world yet. And there's certainly many types of improvements that can be made here, there, other places as well. And Minerva definitely does have the intent to drive that positive change by showing what we believe is a better path, or at least one better path. There may be many, and we certainly hope that people will look at us, learn about us, study us, copy us, and iterate upon us. And we believe that's happening a little bit already, at least in the U.S. and maybe even some places around the world that we don't know of. And this is something that could certainly happen here. But certainly, as innovative as this culture and this market and this society is, it wouldn't surprise me if you see something actually coming out of India, that's relevant or relative, or that's related.